I'm going to start this video with two disclaimers. The first one, I'm in my front room again. And one of the dogs is currently eating a stick. So if you hear any crunching sounds, it's that. The second is, this is the only Boards of Canada album I have listened to. Now, before you click off, that is definitely going to change. And I have spent a lot of time going over this and listened to this many times, probably like 6 times in the past 2 weeks since it came out. Now, Boards of Canada are not Canadian. They are a Scottish music duo. They are electronic music duo. And when a friend who recommended this to me said that, I was like, oh, it's going to be like techno or something like. I was like, okay, it might not be for me, but I checked it out and I'm doing a video on it now. So they are actually brothers as well. We've got Mike Sanderson, the dog, Mike Sanderson and Marcus Ewan, and they started in 1986. And it turns out this is their first album in 13 years, which I didn't know. And clearly I'm on a trend of doing return albums here. But yeah, first album since 2013's Tomorrow's Harvest. And basically all their albums have been met with critical acclaim. They're a very famous and influential duo. But they haven't played live since 2001. They're very sort of, they stay out the public spotlight, keeps themselves, which, fair enough. Even the release of this was very enigmatic as well. There was, I believe, only one song that was released on YouTube as an untitled track, and it was before they even announced that it was an album or anything. And yeah, so they've used extensive sort of subliminal messaging throughout their music and samples, and that's very much evident in this. And they explore loads of electronic techniques, mainly pioneering the term hauntology, which is kind of an old sort of, I guess, aesthetic, or creating an older aesthetic that's this sort of glitchy sound. It sounds like it's being made on broken equipment. I think when I was looking up, someone described it as it's been made in an old science lab that they found that was kind of cobwebs all over it. And that's very true. It's it's a really cool sound. It's very how they pull it off, it immediately puts you in this place. It's very cool. The name Inferno is pretty clearly a reference to Dante's Inferno. A lot of the themes that are talked about or mentioned in this album, it's very clear that they're referencing Dante's Inferno here. Now the other dog's chewing as well. And Dante's Inferno, very famous. It's from the first part of his Divine Comedy, and it basically just it explores the Roman he's not prophet, he's just he's a Roman civilian, I think, Virgil, and he passes through the 9 circles of hell, which includes the 7 deadly sins, and then 2 more, which is treachery, and another one I forget. But it's very clear that they're talking about this. There's lots of religious imagery and messaging, and yeah, which I'll get into straight away. So intro it, I guess that's probably how it's meant to be said. It kind of starts off with this weird sort of optimistic sounded TikTok sound almost. It's I feel like I've heard it in edits and stuff. But then it shifts into this eerie kind of spacey soundscape, which immediately goes into Prophecy at 1420 megahertz, which is the first proper song, I guess. And so 1420 megahertz, that was the wow signal. But you should know the wow signal, but that is the bandwidth that's used by NASA for contacting people in space, and that's where the wow signal was picked up in 1960 or 1950 something. So and prophecies are it's kind of like an old or mythological, like supernatural kind of message. That's just like, you know, that's what a prophecy is. It's a message given by like a supernatural entity. So this song, I believe, is their sort of take on what the wow signal kind of could have been or could have symbolized, maybe. As I don't think anything was found in the wow signal. It was literally just like a little blip, a sound, and the scientist who found it just wrote "wow" exclamation mark next to it, and nothing was heard since. So in the sample that is spoken, there's kind of immediately like references to God. It's saying, "I am God, the ultimate resonance," and nothingness is the absolute truth. And they're kind of long, sort of sprawling like monologues in a lot of the samples. Sorry, the dog's going crazy. And the nothingness, the absolute truth, kind of plays off the fact that nothing actually came from the wow signal, I think. But this kind of this entity that sort of speaks is very sort of robotic sounding. I believe it sort of sets up that this whole album, all the messaging and everything, is maybe what we can infer from the wow signal, or what they think it could have been. It plays off of a lot of supernatural things. But it's a really cool opening song. It actually cuts out, like, it's like 20 seconds in, it like cuts out, and I always think, oh, my speakers are like broken, and then it comes back in with the beat. It's really cool, and it's like this slow lumbering ambient thing. It's only like a 4-bar phrase, but it's that like slow and lumbering that feels, the repetition feels very natural. Like, it doesn't feel like it's repetitive in any way. And then they kind of have these like dissonant little beeps that kind of come back in later songs. It's like this very dissonant melody that kind of makes you feel very uneasy. Which that is another thing. There's a lot of sort of tension and release between the songs, just mainly done through like dissonance and like the atmosphere that they create. The next song, Hydrogen, Helium, Lithium, Leviathan, is so those first three are the first three elements of the periodic table, and kind of loosely spell hell as well. If you look at the hydrogen is H, helium's HE, and then lithium is just LI, and then Leviathan is an L. So you're kind of spelling hell there. Maybe that's a stretch, but I was like, I just kind of thought of that straight away, especially with, you know, talking about Dante's Inferno. And then the Leviathan is obviously, that's like it was in the Old Testament, I believe. It's like a serpentine sort of creature, but it's kind of been, you know, twisted. You know, a Leviathan can be anything now, usually associated with the sea, which this song kind of reminds me of like Subnautica a little bit. And obviously there's Leviathans in Subnautica. So, yeah, which, to be fair, this music very much feels like it could be like in video game soundtracks, but I bet these guys just probably inspired people who made video game soundtracks. But yeah, also those first three elements were the three elements that were like, I think were caused the Big Bang, or like created it or something. So they're kind of saying like, I don't know, hell had kind of maybe that an evil, like with the Leviathan, maybe started with the Big Bang. Potentially, not too sure. Most of these ideas I kind of picked up on myself, but also I did look at it's like a Boards of Canada kind of like wiki thing, and that it has a lot of ideas, some of which I'm like, nah, that's not it. But I did a lot of like research around some of the topics for this. But any links to things I'll put below. But it's very like, if you know these terms that they use in the titles, it's very like easy to pick up on, like, oh, okay, they're going down this route. Which the next one, Age of Capricorn, is very sort of layered. So the it's a very, very sort of dark sounding, this one, very eerie, mainly because of the voice that's speaking. It's a very robotic kind of sounding voice that kind of repeats the MAAUS, Mabus, and references like Usama, USAMA. And I was like, what is this? They're just saying letters here. So I searched it up, and this is a direct reference to John Haig's Nostradamus and the Antichrist, which basically tries to find it. It basically was someone who was kind of linking Osama bin Laden, Obama, and some other like terrorist leader or something, trying to link those together. And it was very like controversial, and kind of links it to the Antichrist or the devil. And the Capricorn, the sort of animal representation for Capricorn is a goat, and I'm like, okay, goat is just like always referenced with the devil and stuff. So age of Capricorn, then talking about this, maybe they're kind of saying we're in like the age of evil or the devil, and that's obviously supported by like Leviathan before. So it's like, it started right at the Big Bang, and then now we're still in the age of the devil. And the sample also talks about like being absolved of sin as well, and like maybe there's sort of transitionary period going on, but it's like this weirdly sort of floaty texture in the music whilst all this is going on. I feel like I can't really talk about too much of the music because it's just so good, and their use of samples and just sort of the synth sounds that they managed to create are just so interesting. And the very sort of, the drums are kind of repetitive, but the sounds are always like slightly different, and it's like feels something new, and it's just like, yeah, really really textural sounding. The next one, Father and Son, is like probably the creepiest track. It's we're back to like this eerie sort of sound, and again the like glitchy voices, and he's the line that stands out to me is love the Lord more than any physical being, which is it kind of repeats that a few times. It's like this mantra, and I originally thought maybe this is like a reference to sort of AI and people obeying like technology, because they look, obviously it's not a physical thing, it's online. But it turns out the sample is from a Man Alive series, which this specific one is talking about I believe it was like a policeman whose son went missing and joined the like Children of God cult. It's basically a cult from what I can read. He like cut off all communication and then like went after this, which, so again, more religious imagery. And yeah, so it's kind of talking about how maybe like there is like a God out there. It's all like consuming everything. Maybe evil did start all the way back at this Big Bang, and like we're in this age of evil, and it's like almost unavoidable sort of thing. And then so these glitchy sort of reverby sounds. There's like a drop halfway through where the drums come in a bit harder, and like there's this sort of fatter bass. It's kind of very like haunting and like or daunting as well, not to like rhyme, but it like slowly builds tension after this drop, and it's like this really really creepy sort of, especially after this talking about someone going missing and joining like this religious cult. It's like, oh, is there something sort of subliminal going on here? Is these is this circle of hell, Dante's Inferno, is it real? Is that what we're destined for, sort of thing? It's like, yeah, very very interesting to like explore. Somewhere Right Now is a sort of instrumental pause, and it's sort of a lot more, it kind of relieves the tension of the past few tracks, and they're kind of just showing that they can make like this beautiful like atmospheric music. Like it's really cool. Apparently there's the name of it might be a reference to a Reddit Ask Me Anything that the group did a while ago. I had to look this up. But someone asked like, oh, what are the group doing? They said the group is in the future somewhere. So they're saying somewhere right now. Maybe, you know, the future is now. This is, you know, they've been planning this for a while. And probably this is the kind of album which would take years and years to develop. Obviously we'll probably never know how long, but I would suggest that 13-year hiatus. they were spending a lot of time doing this. So the next song, Naraka, is from Dharmic religion. So we've got another religion involved, and it's the region for hell. So more hell imagery, and it's where like souls are purified and reincarnated. So there's kind of it's kind of similar to well, yeah, it's, you know, reincarnation. It's similar to other forms of reincarnation. But with the Age of Capricorn song, maybe it's saying like, you know, the only way to sort of absolve sins is to go through death and these layers of hell, and be reincarnated. And this song's like really layered and like dense. Like there's like these kind of percussive sounds that like go off. I feel like you pick up new things every time you listen to basically all these songs. But halfway through there's these like Sanskrits. A Sanskrit is like read through, which mentions like Hare, Krishna, and Rama, which is to do with Vishnuism. And I believe it's to do again. It's to do with like reincarnation, and it was I forget what it was. It was really interesting. It was to do. I think it was Vishnu and like bringing this new age. Those three, Hare, Krishna, and Rama. Whenever those three are mentioned in this like Sanskrit, it's to do with like summoning like Vishnu, and then there's like this. It's entering into this new age. So we've got two instances of like entering a new age or like rebirth from two different religions, which is interesting. And speaking of religions, in the next song we have references to Christianity. So the title "Acts of Magic" is kind of like, well, it's basically like talking about miracles. So like in the New Testament, I believe there was 3 miracles occurred, and one of which was like a sort of horde of bugs was like commanded, as if it was like an army, and there is like fly sounds in this song. And church bells as well, which reinforces the sort of religious imagery. And that again, it kind of brings this tension and this unsettling sort of nature. And there's like a quick like subwoofer bass sort of melody, like oscillating up and down, that builds this tension as well. It's really interesting, and it transitions into Memory Death, the next song, which has hospital beeps as the track like goes on, like a heartbeat monitor. And this song again is like spacey, so it relieves some of that tension, but it kind of I kind of position it, especially with like the flies, which like there's like flies around the body as well. It's kind of as if like it's a transition to hell or maybe heaven, or like also maybe a miracle keeping someone alive, which again has ties to Christianity. But the bass kind of flatlines at one point. It just plays one thing, and the heartbeat doesn't. The monitor, the bass does, and then it fades out. And I kind of say, okay, maybe this is like a transition into heaven or hell, most likely hell in this case. And then from then on, it's like a exploration of going through these 9 layers of hell. So we've like established, okay, this is where like evil and hell was. There's a transition period. Here's the transition period in this song, and then we go from there. Which is the next song, "The Word Becomes Flesh," which again is very eerie, sort of immediately in it. And the opening song, or the opening sort of words in it, talk about beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. The title relates to that, which is from the Gospel of John. And yeah, beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God. So more religious imagery here, and establishes this like dissonant soundscape again, whilst this sort of robotic voice is talking. No, sorry, I get myself confused. I'll put things in quote marks. I've got it's a scribble. There's pages on pages for this. Like I've enjoyed going into this, if you can tell. But yeah, the soundscape is kind of, it's almost like endless and unchanging, but there's like slight little variations that keep you hooked on. Like it's a long album. It's like an hour and 8 minutes. Some of these songs are like 5 minutes. Some of them are like a minute long, but they seem like longer because they're just so sort of spacey and making you think. And yeah. There's a sample in the background, which is from an educational program. There is a sample. God, I'm so like, I'm like full of consciousness right now. There is a sample. It's from an educational program from the 80s or 90s, about chicken embryos. And this kind of contradicts the reference to the Gospel of John, and talking about, God is a creation, like he creates these beings with this sort of robotic sounding voice. It switches between like a normal woman's voice and a robotic sound, talking about each and every individual sort of element of this chicken embryo. It contradicts it, because obviously that's like creation theory and evolution and being born, but with this Gospel of John title. But also that sort of creation, embryos and stuff, has to do with reincarnation. So maybe this person's been reincarnated as a chicken. We'll never know. This song was also used in the credits for The Backrooms, which I recognised when I saw that film, which I very much enjoyed. Henry, you're wrong for hating on it if you watch this. But anyway. So Into the Magic Land, the next one. Magic Land, is that heaven? Is it hell? Or is it reality? That's what I get from this. Because the sounds in it are more sort of natural feeling. There's a very obvious guitar sound, makes it feel a bit more human, and also like a plucked bass sound. And I kind of read this as, the Magic Land is reality. Obviously, there's like the embryo, it's been born, and now it's in on the earth, living. Pretty magical, That's birth. It's a cool thing. Blood in the Labyrinth, however, the next one gives that tension again, compared to the last song, which was very nice and guitar sounds and cool. Potentially references the Minotaur, which is very famous. I think it's Greek mythology. But also has a sample from Angel Death, which was a controversial show about the effects of drugs. And there's also sitar sounds and tabla sounds, which are like little percussive drums that are used in a lot of Indian classical music. Talked about in my dissertation. Ball knowledge, I guess. It's not. It's really basic. Yeah, so it's probably talking about like drugs, or like, I kind of read it as the pattern of a brain kind of looks like a labyrinth, and then maybe drugs are like a bleed in that, and like it kind of stains on it because blood stays. My dog just went from lying on the sofa to on the floor. I don't know. Oh. They're enjoying it. They're both asleep, so clearly I'm doing something right or wrong. I don't know. But anyway, that's it for that song. The next one, Deep Time, was the first teaser, which I mentioned earlier, which was released on YouTube under, it was like Untitled Track 05 or something like that. And deep time is a term that is used to talk about like light years and like really long spans of time. It's kind of like a sort of baseline, deep. That's what they're talking about. They're talking about light years, and like it's not talking about seconds and minutes and anything. It's another level of time which is like difficult to sort of comprehend, but we can, in a way. Like if you think light years, light travels at however quick. Light takes 8 minutes to get to the sun. It'd take us years to get to the sun on like on a ship probably. Like it's difficult to wrap the head around. But with that, it's a very sort of slow and ambient track, which is almost cinematic. This would fit in definitely like a, I don't know, like a space, like No Man's Sky or something, or Interstellar, which their last album was inspired by sort of cinematic like soundtracks and everything. So maybe it's continuing on from that. But it's got these nice little harp sounds that come into it as well. It's a very, very nice track. And then All Reasons Depart, we're straight back into this like tense, sort of intense like soundtrack, or intense atmospheric sound. And there's like quiet little mutterings at the start of it, like voices, which is like straight away throws you off. And this references Aleister Crowley's Magic 4. I had to look this up, obviously, which talks about a new astrological age and entering a new astrological age, or like reincarnation, rebirth. It's like a shift in it's a shift in reality sort of thing. And again has these sort of complex and changing melodies that kind of, I don't know, it just suggests like there's this sort of spark of creation. It's like a chain reaction in the melody, like it constantly changing, but also similar. And I don't know, it really puts you in this place where it's like, okay, something new is happening here, something's going on. And halfway through, the bass kind of takes the melody. It's like it's very sort of low, sort of subtle, and it's a lot darker and spacier. And then it's like, oh, okay, maybe this sort of landscape is now established. And yeah, really, really interesting stuff. Which takes us into the next one, Arena Americanada, or Americana, I don't know. Which is just a banger, to be honest. There's not really much to go. I tried searching up and trying to find, is this term mean anything? No, it's just a banger. It sounds like this kind of Miami Vice, like 80s sort of neo-noir sort of, I don't know, you're in America, or Americanada, whatever, driving around at night, and it's just like, it's just cool. This is probably my favorite track from it. It's really good. Either that, or that was an interesting mix of sounds. Pardon me. Either that or Prophecy at 1420 megahertz, because that's a really cool track. So yeah, really cool track. And then The Process, the next one, is again shifts us into this eerie soundtrack. You get thrown around with all these sounds, and has this kind of spaceship sort of automated message kind of sound, and like an angered crowd. It's like someone's evacuating a spaceship. And The Process is literally one search. I just searched The Process, it comes up, is a theology which is talking about how God is ever changing, and is like constantly in connection with all living things in the universe, which contradicts usual theism, which suggests that God is it like has, or at least in Christianity, has these set ways that everyone like lives by, and like creates everything, and everything is as he intends. He doesn't change to what's going on, sort of thing. And there's like this soft piano that comes in halfway through that has like birds chirping in the background. I thought it was because I was outside. I listened to the second half of this, or most of this, whilst I was just like walking around. And I was like, oh, there's like bird sound. It's a nice day. No, there's like bird sound, which I think links to like creation and like, peace and yeah, that's with reference to Christianity, that's like, I feel like that's an obvious link. And then the next track, You Retreat in Time and Space, it goes back into this sort of liminal instrumental, similar to the Backrooms song. But this one's like weirdly unnervy, and it's like, oh, okay, there's this new foundation set, and it's like you're viewing something from like afar or outside. It's like you're just floating around in space, as it were. To me, it sounds like in films after there's like something crazy happened, like when they're in space, and then there's like no sound, and then like, I don't know, this song would fade in. And apparently this song, the first half of it sounds the same if you play it forwards and backwards, which is pretty cool, I guess. But then halfway through it, it kind of picks up a bit. There's like drums enter, and there's like vocoded like voice sort of, just they're not really saying anything. It's like humming, which are very Daft Punk sounding, and there's like funky guitars and stuff, and it slowly like builds up. It's really cool. And it's like, something new has been established here, which transitions to the last song I saw through Platonia. Platonia is a pretty famous idea. It's Platonia is basically like an infinite sort of timeless realm of the universe where every instance of the universe is happening at once. And it's by Julian Barber. There we go. I had to just confirm who it was by and all that. But there's also this heartbeat pattern in the background that kind of is the sort of bass drum sound that keeps it going. And it's interesting this is in it, and there's like the heartbeat monitor earlier on in the song. And it kind of suggests, I don't know, maybe sort of life is the meaning of all this creation and all this reincarnation. That is what everything centers around, is just life and being. And there's these like carrier radio signals, which are kind of like, dissonant, kind of just like static sounds sort of thing, which are associated with DMT, it turns out, and the experiences people have with that. And DMT is also released when you die in the brain, and it's why you have like sort of people say, oh, you relive like your life and the best moments when you die. There's 9 seconds of silence and a flat line at the end of this song, or like the bass cuts out. It stops, like the whole song cuts off immediately or suddenly. So it's maybe it's like, this cycle is kind of repeated, and when they've been reincarnated, they've died again, and they are dying completely. They're not, obviously some religions with reincarnation, you're constantly going on and on, but maybe this is just, they're kind of they die properly, and that's why there's these links to DMT, and it's like they've died, it's been played back, and then cuts off. It's just the dream sort of before you pass on to the next realm or whatever. But also maybe with this silence could suggest it loops on. I think they'd probably make it obvious if it was like a repetition. But also maybe with this, it's like they've succeeded in this passage through Dante's Inferno, through these 9 levels of hell, and been rebirthed. But I've explored that plenty enough. I've just realised this is 34 minutes long. So, but I mean, there's a lot to unpack. It's been very interesting to read over this, and it definitely will not be the last Boards of Canada album I listen to. I don't know if it will be their last. I mean, they've been going since 1986, which was 40 years ago. What's the dog doing? Yeah, definitely won't be the last Boards of Canada album I listen to. Definitely won't be the last time I listen to it as well. This will probably be a vinyl purchase, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, it's been really interesting to go over. I've probably got some things wrong, especially to do with like the religions and everything, so apologies. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on it. There's a lot to unpack. I haven't talked about much musically, I suppose, apart from how the elements contribute to the kind of subliminal messaging they're creating. But it's just like a masterpiece of like electrical music or electronic music. Like it's there's not much that could be said. I can see why these guys have all the hype. And yeah, that's it.